we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement, Freud, and Geraldine Jones in just a minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, these four clever exponents of the game are going to try and do battle in this verbal battle of wits and try and speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them, and they will try and do it without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way at all. And if they're successful in doing this, they will gain points. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of one of these crimes, they may challenge by pressing a buzzer in front of them. And if I uphold their challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I don't uphold their challenge, the person speaking gains a point and keeps the subject. This is the way we score. This is the way we play the game. Geraldine Jones, preventing long telephone conversations. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
It would be far too simple to say on this highly sophisticated program that the best way of preventing long...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
I think this is one of the most unhighly sophisticated programs
Well,
I
Clement,
think it's crude to a degree.
You're a disgrace to say unhighly. I've never heard such bad English in my life. That's absolutely disgraceful.
And your eyes...
You've got the nerve to pick up a lady. That's not very gallant. A lady sitting there trying to do her best, and you cut in on her like that. I mean, that's awful, isn't it?
I take it back.
Dreadful.
I withdraw.
But I think
Lady,
Kenneth
she's
Williams...
I withdraw.
Over there.
And I think Kenneth Williams has approved how unsophisticated it is.
Okay.
Only fair thing to do, I'm sure, is because I think it was a clever challenge, is to
Look
give
at her.
Clement Freud a
Correct.
point for that, but leave the subject with Geraldine Jones, who continues for another 55 seconds on preventing long telephone conversations, starting now.
Preventing long conversations is by putting the telephone receiver down very smartly as soon as you've heard that the person you're speaking to is not someone that you want to go on talking to. But on the other hand, if you want to be a little more sophisticated, then the thing to do is to say, "Ah, my house is on fire," and run away from the telephone immediately. Or on the other hand, to say, "I'm just..."
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
We've had two other hands.
I have to.
You are not going to get any points for that cleverness. All we do is to give Geraldine Jones a point, and she continues with the subject for the next 36 seconds, starting now.
Or you can purposefully mistake the name of the person you're speaking to, so that if it's John, you talk to him as Brian throughout the conversation. And this makes him so...
Repetition of conversation.
Derek Nimmo, repetition of conversation. Yes, Derek Nimmo. 27 seconds left for you on the subject, starting now.
Of course, quite obviously, the best way to prevent long telephone conversations is to have a short wire. All you have to do is to have a telephone here and one sitting down on the floor underneath, and then you can chat quite comfortably without any length of the thing being involved at all. I don't know anybody has no...
Clement Freud, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, you have another point. You have 8 seconds left for the subject, starting
Wasn't
now.
a hesitation, it was a
Ideally, you
flounder.
do it from a telephone box with insufficient money to protract anything that anyone might say. For instance, if it costs 1 shilling to have...
Well, as Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, which tells us that 60 seconds is up, he gains a bonus point, which at the end of that first round gives a very definite lead over all the others. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? And on this point, I'm sure you can talk very easily why I am so popular. 60 seconds, starting now.
If you combine false logic with faulty thinking, you do have a random chance of arriving at the correct answer.
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Regrettably hesitation.
Yes, he just couldn't think why he was so popular. So Derek Nimmo has the subject, and there are 51 seconds left. Why I'm so popular, Derek, starting now.
Why I am so popular is really because I pay tremendous attention to bodily hygiene. I do think it's terribly important, you know. Every morning I get into my bath and I scrub my feet very well and very thoroughly. I make sure my toenails are beautifully clean and polished and rounded. I then get out of my bath, having cleaned the rest of it whilst I was in it, I might say, all round about, and I cover myself with talcum powder. To my dressing room I go, select a pair of lily-white underpants, put them on, a lovely chemise, a bow tie.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation. This is all about personal hygiene and sartorial elegance. It's nothing to do with why I'm popular.
It might be the
Why I
reason
am popular.
he has decided that that is the reason he's popular,
I can't
because...
be any other reason.
Oh, they're on his side.
So Derek Nimmo's sartorial elegance and hygiene is keeping him going with another point, and 23 seconds left for why I'm so popular, starting now.
Then I get my comb and I brush through my golden locks, put
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
He hasn't got golden locks.
No, he certainly hasn't got golden locks.
No. I brush through them before I dye them.
You're
The
being
next
too...
bit coming up.
That's
you
really
see.
That is really getting out of it.
He's impatient.
No, we couldn't wait for you to dye your hair in this particular programme. There isn't time. You can't get out of that way, Derek. Clement Freud has another point. He has 19 seconds left for why I'm so popular, starting now.
I think it's purely kindness of spirit and beauty of mind.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation is desperately unpopular.
Oh, yes. Oh, big cheers.
We have no knowledge that you are popular for the reasons that you gave us, Derek. So we're going to have to accept Clement Freud's reasons, and he continues another 15 seconds for why I'm so popular, starting now.
When I left the studio yesterday and went to my car, somebody had very kindly written on the windscreen, "We love Clement Freud." They had actually misspelt both the first name and the second, but it was a kind thought, and I was delighted and realized finally...
Well, Clement Freud, rather late in that round, finding a reason why he thought he was so popular, has given himself an even bigger lead over the other three who are almost equal in second place. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? What they may find on Mars. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, it all depends, really, upon which Ma you select. I remember going to see old Ma Edgerton, who lives in Burnley. And at first they found very little trace of living life upon her. But after a thorough investigation, both the biologists and the naturalists did find some proof that there was life on this particular Ma. They did find other things. She wore clogs and lisle stockings, long cami knickers, a liberty...
Geraldine Jones, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
Was waiting for
No. He was going very well. No.
Yeah, I was liking the bit about the knickers.
I like the bit about the lisle stockings with the
Yeah, I
clogs.
was getting all worked up over here.
All right, very sexy, I think. Lisle stockings with clogs. Or very devious. They could have challenged on that, couldn't they? All right. 25 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo. You've got another point. What they may find on Mars, continue now.
Unlike the investigation into Ma Crossfield, who lives in Huddersfield, there they found several craters and lots of curious canals, but no trace at all of any sea that resembled tranquility. They did find upon her a large frilly hat with a feather on the top, with a little pom-pom in the middle, which is a great shock to everybody, and a veil.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
What of?
Pom-pom.
Ambassador, you thought of the game. Who do I award the point to?
You
must give this to the audience.
I'll give it to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with Clement Freud's challenge, will you please cheer? If you disagree with this challenge, will you please boo? And will you all do it together now? I decide the rays have it. Clement Freud has a point for his pom-poms. 6 seconds left with Clement Freud to continue what they may find on Mars, starting now.
A wealth of mineral and deposits such as geologists would like and investigate...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Hesitation between wood and like.
I don't think there was any hesitation
Yes, there
at
was,
all.
quite definitely.
No, I don't think so. So Clement Freud has another point. And there are 2 seconds left, starting now.
and signs of human life such as...
I think Kenneth Williams was trying a little Clement Freud trick then, trying to get in just before the whistle went, but I don't think he succeeded, and so Clement Freud has got a very commanding lead in this particular round over all 3 others, who are all very close in second place. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round, keeping one's temper? Can you talk about that subject? Starting now?
This is the mark, of course, of a civilized man. This is what really being learned, being well brought up is about. Keeping one's temper, not allowing the passions to overrule one, not allowing oneself to suddenly shut your great mouth and things like that. Because this is not going to induce harmony. It is not going to bring about goodwill. What's who's challenged?
Clement Freud is challenged.
What basis?
What basis, Clement?
Hesitation.
Do you think you hesitated, Kenneth?
Well, I mean, I leave it to you. You're the chairman. You're the best at the judging. I mean...
Yeah, but you giggled. Actually, you did hesitate. It was only because Clement was so far in the lead and you were so far behind.
You've got to have the rules,
You've got to have the rules. You're quite right. You're very sporting, Kenneth. So Clement Freud has another point, and he has 33 seconds left for keeping one's temper, starting now.
In this sort of game, it is absolutely essential to resolve one's equanimity. And
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
I just don't understand. What is it, deviation? How can you resolve your equanimity? What does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know what it means.
Well, all right. Explain to him, Clement.
I said reserve, or I meant to say reserve.
Yes, but you said resolve. So
Did I?
Clement Williams has
Quite right.
another point, and he has 29 seconds
Quite
left for
right.
keeping one's temper. Starting now.
The best way to do this is to count very slowly, 1 to whatever number suits you, when you feel this terrible urge mounting inside, when you feel your gall and your spleen.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
I've not the slightest idea. I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry, but he said gall. I thought he was going to stop at the end, but he didn't.
He didn't, he went on.
I
So
do
Derek,
apologize.
Kenneth
Give him a
Williams
point.
I'm not going to give it to him. Yeah, I'm not going to give it to him. He's won it, fair and square. So,
Yeah.
Kenneth, you have another point, and you have 17 seconds left for keeping one's temper, starting now.
And then conjure up a vision of beauty and loveliness, something which was a lesson, say, of morality to all mankind. And then, with that floating through your head, you will find that your lips will give forth some sweetness, some strange poetry. People will kneel before you. He didn't blow the whistle very well, did he?
Well, Kenneth's strange poetry has not helped him to leap into the lead, but he's still in second place alongside Geraldine Jones and Derek Nimmo, who are still all far behind Clement Freud. Geraldine Jones, your turn to begin the next round. Useless occupations. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Long ago, I came to the conclusion that all occupations which involve any sort of effort at all are totally useless. The more active we become, the more useless the end involved. People who teach are really doing something very useless. What is the purpose of their work? To teach other people to be equally useless later in life. People who serve in shops, they sell stuff so that we can buy it, so that we can eat it, so that we have to go back and buy more. Perhaps the most notorious of these is that of politicians. All these people who live in their little houses and make their little speeches.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Repetition of little.
Little houses.
In little houses, yes. All right, Clement. You have 23 seconds left for useless occupations, starting now.
One of the most useless occupations, and I shall come to others by and by, is the refurbishing of finger stalls, which a friend of mine called Horace Whitmore does in Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire.
Clement Williams, why do you challenge?
By and by, said repetition, because he said pom-pom.
About
so
20 minutes ago.
If you have uphold a challenge of pom-poms and a repetition of little, which I think is slightly trivial, and I must award by and by, so Kenneth Williams, you have another point. You have 11 seconds for useless occupations, starting now.
Well, I feel I can add very little to what Geraldine Jones has said so eloquently. And indeed, politicians are totally
Derek Nimmo,
useless.
why have you challenged?
Well, he's not talking about it. If he can't add anything to it, he's not talking about the subject, is he? He says devious.
He is talking about the subject, because Geraldine Jones is talking about useless occupations.
I feel I can add nothing to it, he said. Those were his very words.
But he was going on to say that he was on Geraldine Jones' subject, useless occupations. Derek Kenneth Williams, you have another point. You have 4 seconds left, starting now.
How many times have we heard these cliches pouring out of their lips? We shall go forward together. How many times have you heard that? Thank you, Mum.
Well, Clement Freud's still in the lead, but Kenneth Williams is now definitely in second place ahead of the other two. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round, queuing up at the post office? 60 seconds on that subject, if you can, starting now.
I have absolutely no idea what one does in a post office. I suppose you send your secretary and you say, will you go to this place, and stand behind a lot of other people if they're in your way.
Derek Nimmo, why you challenge?
Hesitation?
Yes, I'm afraid there was, because he's nothing about queuing up at the post office. So, Derek Nimmo, you carry on with 46 seconds for queuing up at the post office starting now.
Generally, I choose the one in Trafalgar Square because I awfully like the mural on the wall. In the door I go, and when I get firmly inside, I join the queue, and it's awfully jolly, you know. You'd be surprised at the people you meet. You talk to the fellow next to you, you say, why are you queuing? And he said, I'm here to buy a threepenny stamp. Oh, really? I say, that's rather out of date now, because we have to pay either fourpence or fivepence. He said, do you really? I said, yes, you do, you do, you do.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged.
Repetition.
Repetition, yes. I must tell the listeners that he was acting so well to the audience, that's why he got carried away and he said, I do. 25 seconds for you, Geraldine Jones, to continue with queuing up at the post office starting now.
Queuing up at the post office is really more a sport than a chore because you can jump queues. You start in one, and then when you see that the next one is working much more efficiently than the one you're in, you move to it, and then you see that the next one, and so it goes on until you find that you've done a wonderful sort of hurdle race all round the post office, until at the end.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition, alas, of post office.
Yes, I'm afraid there was too many references to the post office. That's quite right. We've had it many times mentioned. Derek, you have another point. You have 13 seconds left, starting now.
The next but one fellow said, oh, I'm here to buy a postal order. So I said, why? He said, oh, well, I want to send one off for my football pools. I said, that's terribly interesting. Who have you supported?
Well, at the end of that round, Derek Nimmo, Geraldine Jones, and Kenneth Williams are now all equal in second place, but definitely quite a way behind Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? It's quite a simple one. Curling. Now.
The best way to do this is after washing your hair to apply a decent sort of setting lotion. A lot of this stuff is quite gluey, but the results are enormously rewarding. I've just kinked in a few waves, you see, and the curls afterwards have been ravishing. People have stopped me and said, what lovely curls you've got. And indeed, when I was younger, I had them right the way down to me. Well, I tell you, I could sit on them. I could sit on them. Oh, what a fool I was.
Yeah. You challenged why?
Repetition of sitting on.
Yes, yes. His sit-upon gave him away, and so you, Derek Nimmo, have a point, and you have 23 seconds left, starting now.
It's a game, you see. You have large things that you chuck across the ice with great abandon, and you score up points. It is played very often in Scotland and in northern Canada, because a lot of Scottish folks, you know, immigrated to northern Canada. Some
Kenneth, why do you challenge?
Deviation. We're not discussing immigration.
No,
the
we're
subject
not.
is curling.
So, Kenneth, you have another point, and you have 14 seconds left for curling, starting now.
Curling can also be done by a process of heating. You actually blow hot air onto the locks and form the pattern.
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
Deviation. I can't imagine Kenneth Williams blowing hot air onto his own locks.
I think Kenneth Williams blows a lot of hot air all the time. Right, you have another point, Kenneth, and you have 5 seconds left, starting now.
And the blowing of the hot air so forms a lovely kiss.
Derek Nimmo, why did you challenge?
Blowing, unfortunately.
Yes, we had the blowing of the hot air
Repetition.
again. So there are 3 seconds left for you, Derek Nimmo, to take up curling, starting now.
Well, I wind it round my finger like so, you see. And when I take my finger...
Well, we are still in this situation with Derek Nimmo, Geraldine Jones, and Kenneth Williams almost equal in second place together, and in a very commanding lead still, Clement Freud. Geraldine, will you begin the next round? The subject is Why I Like Men, and you start now.
It would be terribly invidious on this programme to say why I like men. It would be impossible, of course, to play the game if I didn't, because I'm sitting here surrounded by them. But I suppose, really, the main reason...
Clement Freud, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation?
Yes, indeed, there was a hesitation. So you have the subject, and there are 49 seconds left, Clement Freud, for you to try and tell us. And listeners, I should explain that laughter from the audience is caused by the fact that Kenneth Williams is sitting back in obvious pleasure at the thought of his friend who has sparred with him, should I say, throughout the series, as he listens to Clement Freud telling us for 49 seconds, if he can, why I like men. Clement, starting now.
Principally, it's because of their lovely hair. When you get a man of quality sitting close to you, who has blown hot air over his upper and out, there's nothing more beautiful or more attractive than the sheer sight of such a person close to you. But I also like men for their intelligence as well as their sheer beauty. I know, for instance, Derek Nimmo, who has knowledge unparalleled among people on the stage, and a devoutness of thought, a decency of religion, and a heart.
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
It was anticipatory hesitation.
Anticipatory.
I slow it down.
Enjoying that. You go on, leave me alone. Listen to me.
Your anticipatory buzz on your buzzer, Geraldine, has given Clement another point, and there are 14 seconds left for him to continue with Why I Like Men starting
You
now.
just have to extreme
They
youth.
also have very pretty feet, among which I would like to join the name of Mr. Nimmo. But
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Well, regrettably, repetition of Nimmo.
Yes. I thought you would have said not regrettably, but otherwise. But anyway, Derek, some say we can't have too much of Nimmo, but in this game we can. So it is 6 seconds for you to continue with Why I Like Men starting now.
I like men particularly like the leader of the opposition.
Geraldine Jones, you have challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. The leader of the occupation has given Geraldine another point, and she's got 3 seconds left with the subject back in her lap, Why I Like Men.
The main reason, obviously, is because I'm a woman, and this is the most...
The situation at the end of that round is exactly the same. Clement Freud still has a very definite lead over the other three, who are almost equal in second place. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? And the subject is My Relations. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
my relations consist of the father-mother syndrome, which is so popular in Russian novels, but extending to brothers and cousins, to aunts and uncles, and to other relations which I don't at this moment want to mention, but which I shall talk about in a moment. Or not, as the
Or
case
not.
may be.
Or you don't want to, perhaps. Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Hesitation,
Very
because the
definite.
moment has gone.
Yes, yes, and he don't think he can go on with his other relations. So we'll press on with you, Derek. 37 seconds left for My Relations, starting now.
Well, first of all, I have a mummy. I used to have a daddy. I have a sister, Valerie, an aunt, Beatrice, a cousin, a dear cousin, actually. Repetition.
Clement Freud.
Repetition.
Yes, he had to
Cousin.
overemphasize his cousin. So Clement Freud has the subject back, and there are 27 seconds left for My Relations, starting now.
Abigail Nunthorpe is one whom I've often called Auntie, although she's actually not a blood relative.
Geraldine Jones, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, he's not talking about blood
If she's not a blood relative, she's not a relation.
Precisely.
All right? So,
Oh.
Geraldine, you have the subject. Kenneth Williams, you've challenged. Why?
I beg your pardon, I have no right to challenge your judgment. Of course, that was ridiculous. I was going to say you can be related to someone by law, and it seemed to me perfectly
You're
valid.
absolutely right. So I had to put it to the audience. Kenneth Williams has pointed out that there is a way of interpreting that remark, so I'll let the audience be the judge. Do you think that Geraldine Jones is right? If you agree, will you please cheer? If you disagree, will you please boo? And will you all do it now? Well, I'm afraid undoubtedly the audience entirely agree with Geraldine. So Geraldine has a point. She has 17 seconds left for My Relations, starting now.
Close relations you can normally cope with because you know who they are. You visit your auntie and uncle and sisters and brothers at Christmas and at birthday times. It's the ones...
Kenneth Williams, wife of Charles.
Deviation is completely untrue that she visits her uncle or her auntie at Christmas time.
We've only got her word for it. How do you know
I
she
can
doesn't?
tell you this. I can give you information after the show about it. They've been crying out for her to visit them. They've said make it because she won't go near them. And now she's got the cool nerve to sit there and talk. Yeah, get on with it.
Now, Kenneth, if you can give us proof here and now... that
Oh,
she
well, I
doesn't-
can't do it
Well, that's
now.
all right. Then
No.
Geraldine has another point, and she has 10 seconds left. My Relations, Geraldine, starting now.
It's the ones that you don't know about that are the worrying things. You visit Coventry and you have no idea that anybody there knows you, and suddenly somebody jumps up in the street and says, "Hello!"
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular game of Just a Minute. And at the end of that game, Kenneth Williams was in fourth place, only just 1 point behind Geraldine Jones, only just was 1 point behind Derek Nimmo, who was definitely a long way behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. Thank Thank you. On behalf of our winner, very much for that applause. We hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. And from all of us here, goodbye and thank you for listening.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.